Welcome. This is the DNX Show. We're here every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We talk about domain investing. It's domain investing topics. We have an open discussion. That means the public, Josh and I are sitting on thrones and we let the public come in and we say, hey, what do you want to say about the community? No, about the business. But anyway, open discussion. We like for everybody to participate. Thanks for being here. Let me say hi to my co-host, Josh Reason, over there in Florida. Josh, what's going on today?
Nothing much, man. Just working hard. Yeah, been working a lot more this past 12 months than I probably have done for at least 3 years. But it's fun. I can't complain. So all good.
What I like, Josh, is I'm just thinking is because I know you were sort of taking a break, you said, and then of course it's sort of like not playing at all and then playing pro pickleball. So you go from zero to not just playing, but you're operating a company and now, but building a company, not just operating it. You got to build it and operate it. But what I think is funny is that you must have to put on your fucking friendly hat because you got to build relationships like you do with a lot of them, even if it's your friends like over at Media Options. You're doing more and more business with them, and or say when you're working with Leanne, who's fantastic, or Brooke, it's friends do business with friends, and you're building your company, so you building relationships with other companies, and then of course you're working with, because I never say they work for you, you work with your engineers and your team, because we all work together. I never felt like, even when I was employed at some places, I worked with them. I don't work for anybody. Of course sometimes you have a boss and you're the subordinate, but I just never liked that work for. But anyway, so Josh, you must have to
Yeah.
you must have to be friendly more than you normally are. But
You know what?
yeah.
I not really. I'm actually everyone that we work with. You know, even GoDaddy, right? I mean, I'm interacting with with the GoDaddy guys every day, so I'm pretty much 100% authentic with them. I speak with Alan, I speak with James, I speak with various other people over at GoDaddy pretty frequently, and yeah, I mean they get the authentic version of me, and same thing with like media options, like Drew and JT, Amar. I mean, the only partner that we really work with that I don't really have, I would say, like a friendship level with is Sedo, but we don't really work with them that closely anyway. And it's not that I don't get on with them; I just don't communicate with them very often. Um, I mean, we're now starting to do we're doing a lot more things like in preparation for the registrar side of the business, so there's a lot more like I guess slightly more professional calls that I'm having to deal with on a daily basis, which I can't say is like the funnest thing ever. But again, like I honestly, I'm kind of just like past the point of being anything other than myself, and I'm not going to be able to build this company if I'm not my authentic self, and just and if I'm not, if people don't like that or appreciate that, that's kind of, it's just it's just that is what it is, at the end of the day, because basically what I'm trying to say is if I have to be anyone that I'm not, I'm not going to be able to put up with this in the long run. I'll just bail out. So uh you know that's essentially it.
Yeah, no,
Does that make sense?
yeah, no, Josh and I was going to say, you're right. I mean, at some point, especially when people deal with each other and you're dealing with people, they're going to see eventually who you are. It's sort of like how I feel on when we do these shows. We can, put on the bullshit, hey, so we're doing this. And then finally, when they start seeing who you really are, and that's an advantage. That's what I have always liked is, yeah, so you, I'll tell you, that's what I liked when they started shifting years ago. I mean, I produced some TV bullshit, and when they started shifting to, reality stuff, a lot of it's not real reality. But when you just are with people so often, you can't help but, authenticity shows. So you like in
Mm.
business in this space. So I know people sort of. I like that they, get to know who I am by doing some of these shows, even when we're doing the law show and doing this, you can only fake it for so long. But let me ask you this about Amar. You mentioned Amar. I really like Amar, and I know he runs his own operations there. But what's a kind of conversation that you have with Amar about different things? And I know he's an attorney; he doesn't practice, but he was saying, he does the continuing education. He was telling me about to make sure that he's always licensed. But I really like Amar. What kind of conversations do you have with him about your business that you can share, or about domain investing?
Yeah, I mean, so Amar is like a strategic, investor for us as well as, media options. I mean, they've both, Amar's been in the space for a long time. He's built, very successful companies. Traffic monetization. He was one of the kind of like OGs in that. Domain tools. He was one of the obviously OGs in that. He also built aftermarket.com. So he's not just a top investor. He's one of the best builders that we've had in the industry. And then paired with that, he's an exceptionally good person, and I get on very, very well with him. So I talk to him as a friend, and we sprinkle in some business here and there, and I think that honestly, that's the perfect recipe, and that's actually that's how all of my relationships form. I mean, Dave Parr is in the call right now. He's our lead developer, and he's primarily a friend. He's been a friend for I don't know 10 years, and just so happens to be that we now work together. But um, I think that who you pick to do business with is incredibly important. If you don't like them, just don't bother.
Especially when you have a team of less than a dozen, less than 10, less than five. The reason I
Yeah.
say that is because I know how I do it. Josh, I do the exact same thing. One, a lot of the guys, now I'm really deep into some businesses, partnerships with a couple guys. One, Jeff Newman, and the other is Chad Fokening. And I got, it's not just full on businesses, but from, payroll. I mean, we do business together, and it was really started as friendships. We were colleagues, but that's how I've always done it. And maybe they just force it on the people that I do business with. It's like, all right, first we're just going to hang out. We're not going to do any business. I don't want to do any business. Everybody constantly wants to do business. And I mean, I do. I know I do. But I mean, I like to get to know, really feel, is this the kind of person that I want to be around anyway? Now, if you're a CEO and you're operating a company that's got hundreds of employees, of course, then you're not friends with everybody that's a whole different situation. That's why I mentioned less than a dozen employees, or people that work for a place. Then I feel the same way. But anyway, Josh, that's how I really enjoying some of the things that I'm working on too, in the partnerships that I've built. And really, it's friends do business with friends, friends buy from friends. I've always felt that way anyway as a salesman. So you make friends with the people that I've always tried with who I'm trying to sell something to, but you really have to be patient with the relationships in the domain space. I think a lot of us know that's why you join organizations. Like, that's why the main reason why I joined internet commerce, it wasn't like, what, there's a lot of things that I need to lobby for, and I need to band with these other people because we need to make sure that .com price that are benefits of the organization, to try to make sure that we don't get robbed with regards to UDRPs, or increase registries increasing .com, or they increase the .ai prices. But it was really just, who are all these people there? I'll go, and if I didn't think there was valuable folks there, and I knew there was, because I read about a bunch of people for years prior to, and most of the people I wouldn't care to be friends with aren't fucking members anyway. But my point is, from the brothers that run Turn Commerce, fantastic guys, Andrew and Jeff, to like the guys I just mentioned I do business with, but a lot of the lawyers, a lot of the brokers, there's just some great business folks there. I knew that was my main thing. I was like, listen, so and I didn't realize I was going to be in the domain space this long. I mean, I loved it, when I was younger, say 25 years ago, and I'm we're trying to find, we're looking at the blogs, but we're going on Name Pros and DN Forum. But I didn't know that I would still be involved with domain investing. This like now I'm turning more into, and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm turning more into those guys. And what I mean is, yeah, I still got a portfolio of 1,000 now, 1,200 names, but a lot of the guys that are in the space, well, especially the attorneys, these guys are, in the domain investment business, and even some brokers, and they don't even have portfolios. But yet, and especially a lot of the guys that operate registrars and so on. Well, anybody on your crew also domain investors? I mean, are the engineers your developers, Dave? I mean, you have to give away any, but and I know and Leanne owns some names. I don't know if Brooke as a broker does, but do you have
No,
anyway?
Dave, Leanne, Lee, all the guys that are, you know, on DNX on the DNX team, they all have experience investing in domains. Yeah.
There's so many topics today. If anybody wants to check them out, they can go to dnxshow.com. But, we don't go in any order. I put things on there. But I wanted to talk about something that's not on there, and that was a post that Ish made, and then Shane commented on about liquidity with domain names. And we've talked about, anybody wants names to be liquid. Basically, we got a portfolio and it's not uncommon, it's like when you have a portfolio, if you are lucky enough to have a portfolio of a lot of different stocks, let's say, and you think, I do want to buy that piece of real estate, or I want to use my capital I want to give some money to family, or I want to build something, or whatever the case. I want to go on a trip. And I saw a guy on X say he went to fucking Orlando Disney World for 5 days, and it cost him more to do that than it did to go to Italy and Switzerland, and did in first class hotels for 10 days. Okay, so you want your names to be liquid, and domains just aren't that way, especially when you got just that average portfolio. And what I mean, I'm looking at myself and Arif, I'm calling Arif out too, and that is, you have portfolios that the names in the portfolio will sell for 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10, 15, 50,000. But yet when you say I need to sell something today, many times there's just no market for them. You can't even get $50 for them. But like I said, these are names that do sell at a certain sell through rate for 4, 5 figures, and sometimes even more. So liquidity, Ish was saying that uh, by some of the new technologies, and I'll just say tokenization, is going to make domains more liquid, and and it makes sense. He wasn't saying that definitely turns them on to liquidity, but it just adds another feature to it. And so I sort of agree with him. Shane came in and said it doesn't matter. It's all about the name. It doesn't, if they're tokenized, it's not going to make them more liquid. There still needs to be a demand, desire for that domain name. So Josh, all the bullshit I just said, what's your take on liquidity? Is there anything that can make domains more liquid? Including tokenization, and we're always fighting to make this a recognized asset class. So what's your take on liquidity, and how do we make domains more liquid?
Yeah, okay. Like, so simplification and transaction enablement, which is essentially what tokenization is, certainly helps with uh like the just like those, like the concept of simplifying a transaction automatically enhances liquidity regardless of the asset that you're talking about. Um, so but in general, I agree with both, right? So I agree with Shane. A good domain is a good domain. A good domain is liquid. A bad domain is not. But anytime that you simplify the process for trading domain names, um, or borrowing against them, or what have you, anytime you add features and benefits, it's obviously going to help increase liquidity marginally.
I agree with that. Were you still talking? No.
No, yeah, that's
Okay.
that's
No,
all. I
no.
guess I mean
I got off.
I think it's really it's really as simple as that, right? I mean it's not that much more complicated than that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Arif, thanks for joining us, and I'm glad Ish joined us too. Arif, what's your take on this? And then Ish, chime in after that, please.
You called me out, so I figured I'd come up. I mean, I'm getting a little bit tired of this whole liquidity stuff for domains. I mean, obviously there are tiers that are very valuable, and there will be a liquid level for most of those. And as you go down the totem pole, uh, it becomes less liquid because it's just like pack of gum. There's billions of dollars in gum that's sold every year, but can you go down the street and sell a random person a pack of gum? I mean, so it's not liquid, but it doesn't mean that there's no money there, right? In fact, the fact that there's no liquidity in many segments of the domain market is exactly why people like us can go in, find the gems, the needle in the haystacks, whatever it is, and sell them for a nice profit, right? If the whole entire domain market, including the lower end domains, which are still profitable, I'm not talking about the junk. I mean, the stuff like that serves like I have 5,000 domains. I double my portfolio. I double my cost every year, so there is profit there, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that because I haven't really given it a fair try either. That one time I segmented some stuff away, but I didn't market it. I didn't do anything like that. So I don't know. But I think maybe in volume there might be some liquidity, but individually there isn't, and I don't care. Right?
There
I'm
is. I
still
mean, there is.
profitable.
Domains are super. Domain. Like people say, domains aren't liquid. Domains are so incredibly liquid. It's just the trash that's available that you can just pick up for $10 is not liquid because it's trash.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and
That's what I'm trying
by
to
the
say.
way,
Yeah,
I'm not saying that everyone's names are trash. Actually, I am, including my own. Like 10,000 of my 13,000 names are trash. I sell them all the time, but they're not. But they're still trash. You know, and yeah, they're not liquid because they're trash. But the ones that I pay good money for, I can sell for good money like instantly. You know.
yeah. But all I'm saying is like there's domains like the stuff you get in the closeouts or two-figure auctions and whatever it is, and yeah, individually they might be a challenge to quote unquote liquidate, right? But it doesn't mean you're not going to make money from them, right? It's just that if our market, if the domain market was perfectly liquid, right, then there wouldn't be the gems, right? Because liquidity means that everything is kind of visible and everything has a price, right?
People don't even
And
know. People don't even know what liquidate means or like
yeah,
liquidity
yeah,
means. They freaking register domain names for $10, try to sell them for 100, and then they're like, domains are not liquid. What are you
yeah.
talking about, man? You're asking for 10x what you just paid for it. Nobody wanted it. Of course, it's not liquid for 10x.
Yeah, and
10x.
tax is being generous. But yeah, but that's exactly what it is, right? It's people have these unexpected these expectations of every domain they buy. Oh, this is going to be amazing for this. Yeah, but like, is there a buyer for that? If there was, it probably already would have been bought. Sometimes it's not the case, right? Sometimes you got to mine these things, and that's where you get the money from. But yeah, you're entirely right. Like it's just people. I don't think they understand what they're looking for. Most, like not all people. There's some people who do well, who talk about the liquidity stuff, but most of the people who talk about this liquidity stuff are people who aren't making sales, right? There are some exceptions. I know Ish is one of those exceptions. Ish does well for himself, right? But there, most of the times that I hear people talking about, we need liquidity, it's because they can't sell their domains, right? And it's like, oh, no wonder you can't. There's no liquidity for you because your expectations, as you're saying, are like just too insane.
Can I chime in?
Sure.
I
Go for
think
it.
I
I
think
call it. No, go for it. Yeah.
yeah.
Hey,
Good morning, GM guys. I think context matters here, right? So when we're talking about liquidity from the perspective of domain investors and people that flip domain, that is a skilled discussion. That's a skills issue, right? Some people are obviously better skilled at that, and most people suck at it, right? But from a general context of viewing this as an asset class, then we have to go by the standard definition of a liquidity is, right? You can argue and say that even physical real estate is illiquid generally, right? So liquidity to me just measures how quickly and easily an asset can be converted into cash, right? Without significantly affecting its fair market value. Is that, are you following me? Not to go
Yeah.
into economics class. There's high liquidity, there's low liquidity, and we can all agree, right, without beating each other up, that we are in a generally illiquid asset class. And those inefficiencies benefit the skilled people, right? But, which is why we can consider this an echo chamber. Now, if we look at the big picture, right, and you want to categorize this and you want this asset class to improve, than inefficiencies that need innovation to patch them up, right? And that's where I'm bullish on the concept of the rails being built and domain tokenization. It's not a matter of, you know,
Can
domains
I
are,
just
you know,
can I just like because I completely agree with everything that you're saying, other than the fact that I think that I do think that I could liquidate a name like that was like any, I don't know, I'll choose one of like 3,000 names that I have that are not what I would consider junk, and I could email, 5 people, and I guarantee I could get same day
yeah,
cash
but
for like
Josh,
all of
you
those
are
names.
you are an exceptional,
But
well networked domainer. You're a builder. You're staple in the space.
everyone knows those same people. Anyone can go and
Fair enough.
message
Fair
Shay
enough.
or James or Braden or Drew or Amar,
Absolutely. But
and
let
they
me
will
ask you
pay
a question.
and they will pay you like instantly
No,
if
no,
your name is liquid.
great point. And there is some liquidity in domain investing, right? I call, you know, I've texted you names before, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you're giving me a feedback and say, hey, I'm not ready to buy right now. I've sold names to James Booth. I've hit him up on other names, and there's a how pass on that. So we
Yeah.
can argue about how liquid they are, right? The point is, liquidity shouldn't have anything to do with your network. Can we agree on that? Liquidity
So,
should have to do with your visibility, right? So if I'm selling a house, right, and I'm a real estate agent and I happen to know a billionaire who maybe might be going through a divorce, just because of proximity, I can benefit from, hey, this guy's selling this house. There's an opportunity to flip it to this other guy. That those things exist, right? Those are perks that benefit people that are networked and skilled. When I'm speaking about domain liquidity, I'm talking about taking advantage of all the features and utilities of domains as they exist right now. And that includes the fact that they can be on chain, right? Every domain name has that feature embedded in it. And what
yeah,
that enables is the ability to take a domain and make it more liquid. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
yeah, but it requires those buyers to adopt that company, adopt that technology. So
Well,
in
that's a
order,
challenge. It doesn't mean that that's going to be a permanent situation. Like,
but
look,
my point is the liquidity comes from the buyer, not from the technology.
the technology enables liquidity. It's a two-way thing.
But
Well,
we
not,
have,
not always.
What do you
Ish,
mean? Like, do you think Zillow made houses more liquid?
I totally agree with you in your definition of liquidity. I just don't necessarily think it's quite there with domains. I mean, as you said, it's not an all or nothing thing, right? It's shades of gray when it comes to liquidity,
Oh, it's
except for
not there today, but if you're forward thinking and you're able to connect the dots and you're not myopic, then you could see where this could easily become another distribution channel or liquidity mechanism for domains. It doesn't stop anything that is in existence right now. I'm just forward thinking and I'm thinking, okay, let's say 5 years from now, let's say a year from now, let's say even a decade from now. What are the odds of domains, right? Because domains will still be here, right? What are the odds of domains being able to be liquidated to a crowd of owners? What are the odds of domains being treated like the way real estate treats a writ, right? What are the odds of people taking domains and using them for collateral or portfolio and saying, I want to put my portfolio on the blockchain, and there's a crowd of willing participants and say, oh, there's yield here, right? So to me, it's not a matter of where we are right now, it's where we're going. And it takes education, it takes innovation, it takes patience, it takes failure, and it takes, just vision at the end of the day, right? So when people started selling NFTs, it went from digital art to much more than that. And people always go, oh, what happened to that? Well, that's called a market cycle. So I just feel like I'm
no, it's
excited
not.
about.
NFTs are not a market cycle. The demand was all hype, right? There was no true
No, you,
demand for
you
the
don't
product.
know enough about NFTs to speak about them in
It
that
went to
context.
zero. It went to zero, bro.
They
Anyways,
did
but
not go to
here's the thing.
zero. You're fault. You're making a false assertion. A board
Well,
ape today still costs $10,000.
yeah,
And the bottom
people
line
buying
is,
for $500,000.
listen, a board ape still costs $10,000, and that's the cheapest one. And on top of that, right, the reality is there's still 10,000 of them out there, and there'll never be 100,000. So just because you're taking a snapshot of where they
But
are today, you don't know where they'll be a year from now.
just so you're not wrong there, right? So I mean, the value of it, whatever. It's a different discussion point. We won't get into NFTs, but just to say is that the difference with domains and real estate and all these other sort of markets that can be liquid or are liquid, right? Is that every domain, well, not every domain, but most domains have too many unique characteristics about them for the average buyer, the average investor
How is that
to
different from
really make an
NFTs that are
educated.
non-fungible?
What?
How is that different from NFTs that are non-fungible?
What are you talking about? It's all digital donkeys, digital this, digital that. There was no true demand for them. There was no
What
true
do you mean there
usage
was
for
no
them.
true demand for them? What do you mean by that? Just because you didn't, just because
99.99%
you
of
didn't buy one doesn't mean there wasn't any. What do you mean there was no demand for them? Like this is a very.
the demand was hype demand, right? It was people
What do you
FOMO,
mean?
people,
What do you mean?
investors, gamblers.
So you think that the demand was hyped
If
demand?
there was true demand, there would still be people buying and trading them,
People are
right?
still buying and trading them. What are you
At
talking about?
1% of the value of the peak.
It's not at 1% of the value of the peak. This is wrong information,
Hey,
man.
hold on,
Well,
hold on. I could listen to Ish and Arif talk all day because these guys are like, I mean,
I'm just
what a
going
great
with
lunch that would
facts
be.
versus
I know.
assumptions.
Listen, I want to go to Domain Chain and then I want to go to Ryan and hear their comments because Ish, when you posted that about liquidity, and Josh mentioned it right at the start, that it certainly doesn't stand in the way of liquidity. So I think it can definitely be an attribute. I mean, helpful, but how important is it and how does it affect liquidity? But Shane, you made a comment to Ish about there still needs to be demand, and basically that was it. I want to hear more, more developed, more of your thoughts on liquidity, how we can make domains more liquid, what you think about the connection with liquidity and tokenization, and then we'll go to Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I I like to consider myself pretty informed about technology and liquidity between the trading and the NFTs and everything I've done. And I think a lot of people, I think the biggest problem we have is fair market value, right? When it comes to a trading platform, we most of it is successful because you have an established value that you can trade up or down off of. Domains don't have that. We argue every day about what appraisals are, and they're too high and they're too low, and everybody has their worth. And there is no fair market value on domains. It's a number that we make up. There's no right or wrong. When you saw NFTs trading well, it's because we had a floor. There was a floor established that you could set a liquidity value off that people traded up or down or made loans. So until you have that in domains, it will be impossible to match any of the other platforms or marketplace assets that you see. It just isn't doable because we don't have that. It's people deciding price. The other thing I'll throw in there is let's not confuse technology with a new marketplace or demand or awareness. If it get saying something that is a new platform that doesn't provide an advantage other than another place to do it doesn't that's not an advantage. That's just a new place to do that. If you want to
Well,
liquidate
what
a
about a new
domain,
way?
well, it just adds one more layer. Why do you need another layer? Faster transaction? Like you can do a transaction pretty quickly now that we have stable coins.
No, it's not about faster transactions. It's the
So
fact that
what advantage does it
a
add?
lot of domains will sit there. I've heard people, Todd
So
included,
why
who
can't you auction them at Dropcatch? I have a beautiful auction platform for
because
private
that doesn't
listers.
give you that is an option. Now, if there's another option where I can take a name and liquidate 20% of it, like Muncie Khan is doing with investors doing XYZ, and that 20% allows me to cover renewals for some of my names or my acquisition cost of that domain, and I still control 80% of that. That is a new way. We never had that option before. And that is a beautiful
Yes.
thing. Why are you guys so opposed to it? It's just an
Well,
option.
yeah,
No,
but but that's not revolutionary. That's just a new option. I mean, it's
Well,
great. We all want new
the
options.
only way this can be done on scale is on chain.
no.
Why? Why? Name something that you can't do on Ledger that you're doing on
Okay, so
chain.
if you have 2,000 people that are buying 20% of your name, would you want to do a Excel spreadsheet to
Oh
keep
no,
track of
yeah,
that?
Yeah, tokenizations. I mean, the fractionalization is different than tokenization. Fractionalization is a different beast. That's
Well,
that's
you
not
need
my thing.
tokenization to be able to fractionalize for the
No,
most part.
that's 100% true statement. Yeah, fractionalization. We could argue all day whether we think that that's going to work or be popular. My opinion is no. Others have their own. So that's just an opinion that I don't think it'll be that wanted. Tokenization is different.
Yeah, and when it comes to liquidity, look, we have the perfect person in the room right here. DNWE. That was the whole point of it, right? Josh was there. He sold it. The person who took it over didn't even bother because there wasn't enough demand, right? So yeah, you can argue this and things, but it's really when you want liquidity, it's all about visibility and people who understand the
You are stuck in the horse era, and people are introducing vehicles. I can understand your resistance. You've never invested in the blockchain.
Are you telling me that if Josh didn't think that DNW would do better on the blockchain, he wouldn't have done that?
Listen, you're in the horse breeding business. I'm in the automobile business, which we have two different
Hold on.
perspectives.
Stu, I get you here, but it's like people making comments
Josh was in the
about having
horse breeding
kids,
business
about how to
on
raise
chain.
kids. Hold on, Shane, about raising kids and not having kids. So it's like, you don't have kids. Don't tell me how to raise them. Well, fuck it. People can have opinions on it anyway. Before I go to
Of course,
Ryan and then Dave.
you can have an opinion,
Sure.
but what I'm saying is, like, you can't. But you have no credibility
But
when it
also
comes to
about
talking about
fractionalization.
the
Listen, people
limitations
bought
of the
shares of
blockchain.
Shane. You know, people have bought shares of companies, and it's never been on the blockchain. So no, you can fractionalize just fine. You can buy, whether it's buying shares of a stock or buying shares of a mutual fund or buying. So anyway, Ryan, I want to go to Ryan and then Dave because I can't just want to include everyone. Ryan, thanks for joining us. Stage is
What's
yours.
up, everybody? How y'all doing? Hopefully, I can add to this. I've had a very strong perspective on this conversation, which, by the way, comes up in Clubhouse all the time. And I seem to find
That's a joke in
myself
itself. Go ahead.
bridging the gap on the different perspectives, which is, the biggest misconception that people have is that a domain name is a business or isn't a business, or is a business asset or isn't a business asset. And the reality of the situation is that domain names currently are being sold as potential URLs. Okay. They're being sold as potential URLs primarily. Okay. Now, obviously, we've seen the flippa. We've seen people buy a domain name as a domainer, develop it, then exit, make a lot of money, and call that, domaining. But the reality is that what those people are really doing is they're building brand centers and profit centers. Okay. And so the primary question that was being proposed is, what is it going to take? I heard this, someone said this, that's what's it going to take for the general population to look at domain names in a way where there's liquidity? And the answer is very simple. Okay. It's when domain names that are worthy are brand centers and profit centers. Okay. Because here's the thing, the investors that are not investing in domain names are investing in people who pick up the shit of dogs on the side of the road. They're investing in apps that deliver cannabis. They're investing in AI develop. They're investing in all these different things that they don't know anything about, but they understand unit economics. They understand macro and micro. They understand that if I buy something for 100 grand and it makes me $100,000 in the first 100 days, that it is probably going to be a really good financial move, right? So that's the first wave of this, is that the answer to the question of whether or not it's ever going to get there and whatever. And yes, it is. Here's the exciting, follow up to that, is that domain names are being developed at a pace right now that is historical. Okay. People are developing domain names. Domainers are developing domain names. People in this room that didn't touch the concept of designing and developing a domain name are hopping into AI. They're jumping onto their Lovable account and they're typing in stuff. The barrier to entry On the 8th of March, I don't know if you guys know this, non-paid advertisement. I am not affiliated with Lovable. They are letting you design as many websites to as much credit spend as you want for an entire 24 hours for free. You guys can develop as
Yeah.
many of your websites as you
Ryan,
want
let
for
me say this.
free on.
First of all, two things. URLs are domains. Domains are, so it's not potential URLs. They're the same thing. But I'm not that, and a lot of the points I agree with, but also about developing. It's sort of like now everybody can put up, before you had to hire a professional makeup artist to put on makeup. Now you can put makeup on yourself. So what? You're building a motherfucking website. They're not businesses. They're developing out what? I saw a guy who, for I guess Rick Schwartz, put up on pool repair a fucking website. They all look the fucking same anyway. All this lovable shit, all this fucking gamma shit, it all looks the same. And everybody thinks, look, I built something. You didn't do anything. You put on some motherfucking makeup. I mean, you built a website. A lot of us had done it the hard way, right? Via simple, basic HTML or really WordPress or whatever. It just took us a little longer, but still, that was the same thing. We put up a website, big deal. Okay, so it is easier, and it's still not building a business. Okay, so anyway, I want to get to
Yeah,
Dave.
but
Ryan, we're
Todd, you're
not going
missing
anywhere.
So
You can.
you're missing the main
yeah,
point
really,
Ryan
really
made, which
quickly.
is
Hold on.
which is
Let
the
me jump.
yield.
Let me
People are
just jump
chasing
in.
yield.
Let's unpack this really quickly because there was a second part to it. So, just to be very technical, because I try to be, URLs and domain names are not the same. If
Yeah, they
you
are.
do not understand the difference between them, a domain name exists on the
They're both
registrar level.
locators. They're
And
both
hold
locators.
on, Todd,
Yeah,
just give me a second. If
go
you
ahead.
just look it up, it's very clear what the difference is and why they are not the same. A URL, it resolves like HTTP :/ or it's not resolving. A domain name exists in a registrar, so they are different. But anyway, the point is, and there's a big reason why that's important, is because until you develop a domain name, it's not a resolving URL. It's just a domain name. Okay. So the first step, Todd, I agree with you. There's a lot of bullshit websites that are being made that aren't doing anything, but there's absolutely truth to the fact that there is a correlation to the amount of domain names that are developed and to the amount of domain names that become profit centers. The more domain names that get developed, the more domain names that become profit centers. There's also going to be more domain names that become profit drains, right? So there's other sides to the equation. But then coming full circle is the whole concept of NFTs, right? And it's like, here's the reality of the situation, is that yes, a few people have pulled off the NFT crowd fundraising model, and it's a great, in theory, it's a great concept, especially to the domain owner, right? To take a domain name that is, for example, a short pot related domain name like 420.com, and to be able to offer that up for sale and say, hey guys, I'm going to give you the opportunity to build in it. The problem with that is it's the same bullshit. It's the conversation about buying into domain names rather than buying into resolving URLs that
Yeah.
are brand centers
Well,
and profit centers.
nothing worse than
Once
domain.
that happens, if you look, there's a statement that, what does it say? Those who are ignorant of the past are doomed to relive it. On Flippa, there were thousands of examples of domain names that sold where the institutional investment category became a thing. And people said, oh, this is a site that generates X amount of profit and you want to sell it for this much money. That doesn't have to be a domainer. That can be anybody at that point that buys the profit center and says, look, if this is how much it makes and if these are the proper
But we're talking
financials.
about domains now that are businesses. But one, I'll say one about cannabis names too. Yeah, terrible area to invest in names, but that's just always been the case. Really flooded with names, hardly any aftermarket sales that are worthwhile. That especially big ones. But to say about, okay, I'll give you that domain names aren't URLs until they're registered. As soon as they're registered and a name server set, I don't care if it's parked, I don't care if it's a fucking GoDaddy lander. Then it turns. So as soon as it's registered, soon as a name server is set, it's a URL, whether you like where it's going or not, whether you think but so soon as the domain's registered, it is a URL. Before that, yeah, of course, it's like fucking just a thought in somebody's head, and it's not. But let's go to Dave. No one's going anywhere. Ryan, thanks for joining us. And so we're going to continue the conversation. Dave, the stage is yours.
Hey, Todd, I appreciate that. Yeah, talking about the liquidity, for better part of a decade, I have managed my own domain portfolio. And with the only real focus for me being, is my portfolio profitable each year or is it not profitable? And reason I say that is because whether or not it's on chain or Ledger or what, I think that liquidity and domain investing really ultimately will lie in portfolio management. So, for example, if I can look at a list of domain portfolios and see the performance of the portfolio over a period of time, it's something that I might invest in, and at the same time, it's something I might look at in terms of handing over a portfolio to be managed and invested in. So that was my only point. As far as a single name goes, I think that's where we always run into trouble. Shane mentioned, valuation and stuff. I see the future being in portfolio performance and management and investment. So that was my only take on it. Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, Josh, what do you this conversation so far? And we're going to, stay on it. There's a lot of things on our outline at dnxshow.com that I wanted to touch on, but what are your thoughts of hearing some of this? I mean, are a lot of us saying the same things? I mean, we all, a lot of us are well experienced here. We know there's domain names and there's developed out, full on businesses, developed out websites. And then now this in between is everyone now can create a lander or create a website or create some kind of, it looks like you're in business, but you're not, those type of websites. Any thoughts, Josh?
No, not really. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of
That was,
well, I know
that was interesting.
Ish and Shane were wanting to say a few more things about this. Please, guys, jump. Go ahead.
So I hear a lot of people talking about what they do as individuals, and yeah, congratulations, you're a great domainer. I don't hear enough people talking about how domains can generate yield and can be treated as an asset class. And that's what the tokenization conversation really unlocks, right? In terms of liquidity. It's not about, I can sell names, I'm good at it. That's granted. Like, we all should be improving in that, and we have an interest in that. And some of us have invested years and decades into that. So of course you're going to be good at it, and you put so much money and time into that, right? If you're not good at it, why are you here? But if I had an opportunity to have been able to participate in the flip of AI.com, there's no way I would have been able to bring $8 million to the table, right? So let's say that name sold for $8 million and ended up getting exited at 70 million. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say that's about a 10x, right? The ability to participate in that transaction is the type of liquidity that I'm talking about, where the quality of the assets, right? Quality assets are now available to the general public to participate in, to have a stake in, and maybe enjoy the ROI of an exit or the ability to trade in the speculation of it, right? That's what I'm talking about. So we're talking about two different things. Like
Yeah.
liquidity is such a broad context, but I'm talking about how do we take this asset class and take it to the next level.
Yeah,
And,
so I
and
think
so that's where I'm coming from.
I think that's why we often talk, argue, or whatever you want to call it, have different sides of view on this, and we're both not necessarily wrong, right? Like what you're talking about, in my mind, is not domain liquidity. It's domain liquidity for the top 1% of 1% of domains, right? Whereas the vast majority of other domains will not have that sort of demand, right? Or that
Well, I
sort of
think I think I
ability.
think the vast majority of domains do have the ability to participate in that. There are domain names that people buy for $5 and sell for $5,000. We've all done it, right? So that's 1,000x, just 100x.
Yeah,
There's
but
still yield.
those domains are available today. You go to GoDaddy expired auctions; they're
Of
there. You
course,
can
of
buy
course. My point is,
them, and nobody does,
my
right?
point is, How can people that don't have the skills, that don't know what a registrar or registry is, participate in investing in this asset class? When that happens, we unlock way more liquidity. Our names are more liquid, and more cash flow comes into the space. Right now, this is an oasis. People don't even know it exists. Only a handful of people. That's why people view domains as, oh, they're squatting on them. There's a lack of education and an interest in this as an asset class, and that
Personally,
benefits us, right? But the bottom line is, we have an opportunity to take domains mainstream, and I think tokenization is what unlocks that.
Well, one thing I got to say is boats, whether it's solar panels or hot air balloons, you could consider each one of those liquid, but people sell those. When you buy a boat and you end up selling it for half the price, if you're willing to pay $500 for a domain ish and then sell it for 200, yeah, that's going to be liquid. But in domain space, everybody wants to sell for a profit, not even for. If you bought a name for 500 and to sell it for 500, it may not even be liquid. Now to sell it for $50 may be liquid. Just like in those other categories I said, if you buy, you know, um, basically, like I said, a boat. Yeah, it can be liquid, and it's going to be liquid just like an RV. It's going to be for a lot less than that new price that you spend. So if domain investors wanted to sell at a fraction of the cost that they bought it, yes, then it's going to be liquid. Listen, there's this conversation. You touched on the AI.com sale. Before we get to the GoDaddy auction that's going on right now, and Shane, you posted some of the names that you liked in that auction. We're going to talk about that. Ish mentioned AI.com, right? I said before I thought it was sold for 8 million a couple years ago. Now it's 70 million. Josh, you made a comment that this doesn't bode well for brokers, meaning we're in and I know what you meant by it, but I want you to expand on that. That if people are buying names for $1 million, sort of like an end user, and then they're reselling them for 10 times that amount, it shows that maybe the broker undersold. But basically, expound on the comment that you made that it doesn't really look well for domain brokers when we see a flip like what he did with AI.
Yeah, I guess like my point is that the brokers, you go to the broker for to extract the most money possible out of a deal. They're the professionals, and they are. Listen, domain brokers bring a lot of value. I've brokered deals, and I feel like I've brought value. There's no doubt that guys like Media Options and they understand the market better than anyone else. But right when someone like Dharmesh or the owner of Crypto.com have a name, they're in a different circle than us, regardless of how good of a broker you are, and that opens up different avenues that we don't really have access to, different points of contact, and then there's also just a different desirability factor, right? When if Bill Gates or Elon Musk or whatever is selling a name, they're they're gonna have there's gonna be a lot more demand for that name than anyone in our industry that's selling a name. And I think that's all that I'm really trying to get across. And if guys like if you sell a name as an if you sell a name to an end user for $2 million, and then they say literally they immediately had an offer for 10x that. It's like, okay, what's going on here? Where, like, how are we not extracting the maximum value? And does that mean that it's inefficient and we're doing things wrong? I mean, yes, to a certain extent, but yeah, I mean that's kind of my thought process. And then at the same time, you responded to this comment is like, I'm not even sure if I 100% agree, like if I 100% believe that the AI.com owner actually got an offer for whatever 100 million more than he paid or whatever it was. Like I'm not sure if I believe that. I think it's probably BS, if I'm quite honest with you.
We call that cap.
Yeah. I mean, like, listen, you can say whatever you want. Like maybe his friend got on the phone and was just like, "Oh, what, you got that for 70 mil? I'll give you 100." Like, oh yeah, ha ha ha, very funny. Blah blah. Moving on. Now I'm gonna tell everyone that I got an offer for 2x more. I mean, that's probably more likely what it was. But there is there is another example, like I posted on X with when Dharmesh bought OS.ai from a friend of ours. Um, but the owner of Perplexity saw that he bought it and then immediately said, "I want that name." Um, you know, when Dharmesh has a name,
Can I ask you a
it's
question? Just why do you think he was bullshitting about someone offering him more than $70 million for it? I honestly believe him. The reason is, it's usually it's just human psychology when someone of that stature and credibility level makes that type of purchase, right? Then sometimes people feel like, what do you see that I don't see, and they're willing to just gamble
I
based
think
on that.
the reason why I think that I don't think that it was bullshit. I just don't necessarily believe it. I think that
But do you
if
think it's
if
undervalued at 70 million? Do you agree with Andrew Rosner on that assessment?
no, I don't. And I mean, like, listen, if brokers, it's a double-edged sword for brokers, right? Because they're quick to say, like, oh yeah, it was undervalued. Like these names are worth so much more because they're thinking about future sales. But at the same time, what they could be also kind of hurting themselves a little bit by saying, okay, if he got an offer for 100 million more the next day, then maybe you guys undersold it. So I mean, it's a double. That's a double-edged sword, don't you think?
Yeah,
Yeah,
possibly, but I think it's all subjective. I can see the valuation being more than $70 million because when you think about it, like IT.com, right? Just the use case when it comes to subdomains, IT.com has sold what? At least 100,000 subdomains. And that you're talking about like an ARR model. So, AI.com, if they just sold subdomains, can they generate, $10 million a year? Yeah, I would say so, right? There are subdomains that resemble AI.com.
Yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean? And
no. I mean, if you're just to be clear, if you're asking my opinion, I think that 70 million for AI.com is an amazing sale. I think the broker
no,
did
without a doubt. I'm just saying,
unbelievable.
do you agree
And
that it's
then
undervalued?
whatever, and I believe let's say that Dharmesh paid like five mil for agent.com. Again, like I think the seller and the broker crushed it. If he is able to then flip it for 6 or 7, good for him. He has a different, again, it's like you said, when someone of stature owns a name like that, whether it's Elon Musk or someone a little lower on the spectrum like Dharmesh, although he's so well known in the AI space that you know he is one of the prime people. I would say he would be, if I had an AI name, I think that my number one person that I would want to sell that name for me would be Dharmesh. But yeah, like at the end of the day, these names are selling. I've been sold for great prices.
You can. I'll just chime in here. One of the things that you can compare this to is a nice home in LA, right? When a celebrity owns it, that social proof that it's good enough for them gives it a little more value. Cars, there's all kinds of assets that once somebody that you respect gives it value, it has more value. So that's something that brokers generally can't do, right? It all comes down to reach and social proof. And brokers have reach. Media options probably has as good as any, but
Yeah,
Snag and Rob has Ohanian and that whole VC reach that's pretty good as well. So you
yeah,
combine all
exactly.
that, but they don't have the social proof that a Dharmesh and those guys saying, "Look, I think it's great, and I'm in technology. I'm the king." That gives it more value. So that's kind of
Yeah, I
what I
mean
see there.
it's not their job to sell. It's not their job to sell domain names. So when they start saying that it's a valuable domain name, people pay attention, right?
Exactly.
That's the
They
difference.
give it
Yeah.
value based on social proof.
Yeah, but like when the best domain broker in the world starts saying like this is a great domain, it's like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to say.
Exactly. And it's not, it's also tough. Like, they get paid on commission, right? They get they get paid to sell, and to wait 3 more years to get the ultimate price is not in their best interest either.
Right, and that's exactly like this is I guess the best way to explain my point. It's like that's the only point I was really trying to make, probably not in the best way possible, is that it's not a great look for domain resellers or brokers, like whether it's you or me or a broker representing our name, that an end user is probably actually able to extract more value out of a domain than us.
True. But again, we've all said it here. You said it exactly right. Somebody in that industry that is respected, who's going to buy that name, says this is a good name, then everybody in the industry feels more comfortable paying more.
That's why we call it influencer marketing.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not. But it's not also just that. It's the fact that they probably always wanted it, but figured nobody else is going to pay that price, right? And then somebody does, and it's gone. But it's also, we can't forget. Also, we're talking about like the top potential domains in 2026, right? It's not truly representative of the entire market, right? AI.com, arguably in 2026, is the most important domain in existence, right? In 2026, you could argue maybe X or whatever it is, but I mean, we're talking top 5 domains for sure, right? We're not talking about the industry. When we're talking liquidity and all these other discussions, is like, you can't, I mean, yeah, we could talk about AI.com, but I mean, like, to me, the average domain is something like greenfox.com, right? That's the average domain. It's a good domain. It's a valuable domain, but and that's the type of thing where, like, I think, we should really be discussing the average domain, because very few of us are ever going to own a domain like AI.com.
Yeah, but tokenization allows you to own a name like AI.com, albeit not 100% of it. That's a good thing.
Fractionalization.
That's why I don't disagree with you. If you're talking about these like 100,000 domains, I'm okay. I agree with you. Yeah. But if you're talking about domains in general, like the 99% domains out there, somebody's got their echo on. But yeah, then it's a totally different thing, right? Totally different thing.
I think at AI.com, I think way overpriced. But I've always felt that way, that domains are just way overpriced. The $1 million names, it's like is it worth it for somebody to spend $2 million on a license plate that says cash in Dubai? A lot of it's vanity reasons, and it doesn't, we've seen, no one wants to talk about all the fantastic names that just fail. Companies spend $1 million for them, and a lot of people always mention so many of the sales are not reported. Yeah, there's a lot of $1 million sales, and a lot of those companies, we wait around as the general public to see, okay, well, we don't care that the sale wasn't reported for this domain name. Eventually it's going to come to light, because we're going to start going to that website. It's going to be a super successful website with an easy to remember domain name. Yeah, go ahead.
It all depends on the business model, right? The same domain at $2 million could be a total disaster for company A, and it could be like super, super valuable, 10 times that amount for company B, right? Depending on the business plan. How much marketing they have to do, how memorable is that domain, and how much does that memorability cut the costs of their marketing and increase the repeat buyers and all these things. Like, those are true metrics that $2 million could be nothing. Even $70 million to the right company, it could be a deal. But for most companies, probably
but the thing is, it's hard to compare, Arif. When it's super successful, then how successful would Purple be, the mattress company, if they named themselves something else, even Purple Fox, especially if they put equally the amount of marketing money. But then folks are going to say, then fucking the argument of, you don't have to put as much marketing money because people are going to remember. I love easy to remember, but I've always been, I've always backed off being as skeptical as I like to be about domains, because I'm in the motherfucking space. It's like going to a Bored Ape conference and saying these things are overvalued. I've always felt like domains, this is like the title of a fucking movie. It's just the title. It's not even the script. Okay? It's not even, there's so much more to building companies than a name.
I agree with you, Todd.
Yeah.
I agree.
So
if I wasn't in domains,
Same here.
Yeah. But still, I don't want to get, rushed out. I want to talk about this GoDaddy auction, because it is an opportunity to buy some, some great names are for sale. I saw Heart Attacks with an S. I mean, I like to own that for a restaurant. Welcome to Heart Attacks. Can I get your drink order? What the fuck somebody going to use Heart Attacks for? But okay, so there's a lot of names in there. I liked Asleep, Shane, just like you mentioned in your blog. And everybody, go to dsad.com. You want to know Shane inside and out, so then when you meet him, you can go like this. I know everything about you, Shane. if I can just go and read his last 17 years, it's unfucking believable. But Shane, you mentioned some very, some of the top names that I think are in the GoDaddy auction. Tell us why you like. I mean, Asleep. I love that name. Mortgage Calculator. That one. So it was just such a high search term for so long. But tell us about some of the names you like in the GoDaddy auction, Shane, if you don't mind, and then we'll get into some of the other names and talk about this auction.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most interesting thing is if you go through and I'm sure we all do in this audience, go through the auctions every day, you're seeing a lot of names that you lost out in the auction. I counted like 10 names, maybe 50 names in the auction that I was second bidder on that are now up for auction. So I'm super curious to see how they resell in the market with a little bit more publicity, in this auction format. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of names in there. But the sleep market is just one of those markets we don't talk about all that often. But between the mattresses and the gadgets, it's such a big market right now, and AI is going to be part of it. But everybody's going to sleep at night. Like that's not going to change in history or in the future. That'll always be a part. So yeah, Asleep to me is just a fantastic name, a fantastic brand. And like you said, Mortgage Calculator, super competitive market, but probably one of the best lead gen names we've had in a long time. It will get bought up by, I think, a mortgage person. I think that's going to be an end user buy. It will not be a domain investor, in my opinion. So I think that's a good one. And then there's something like Fish Tanks, which pretty boring name, but it is a shippable item. Pretty much everybody who's ever had a kid has bought at least one fish tank that now sits in the closet. Yeah, it's sold at the pet stores, but again, those are the kind of markets that I like that I think that will do well. And then the other thing I'll just throw in there is Josh has learned this and does as good a job as anybody in the industry, learning that keywords and the amount of people that use that keyword uh, are the kind of names you want to buy in a lot of different TLDs. So you see names like Bulldog and I think Craze.io. If you look, there's so many things that have Bulldog in the name. Craze is all over the place. Pizza places. Those are the kind. If you're going to get outside of .com, those are the kind of keywords that you want to stick to. The reserves are a little probably where they went at auction recently, but I still think they're pretty good opening bids on those kind of names. So yeah, I think it's a great auction. We talk about liquidity. I think auctions are still an underutilized resale formula of new domainers. When I came into the space, we had a lot of good options for selling auctions. You would buy and flip them immediately in auctions, and I think we kind of lost that. I'm sure DNX has good ideas of bringing that back, but I think the auction process, we're going to see a lot more of that being our liquidity, I think, in the future, or it should be in the future versus anything else.
Thanks, Shane. And it's too bad that GoDaddy doesn't have an auction that allows a lot of us public, domain investors to put our names in auctions. The people that are going to the GoDaddy auction, well, a lot of us know that they're GoDaddy names. They're in their portfolio, in the name find portfolio. But there's a lot of folks that don't know that these could be private names. GoDaddy could really help us out. The auctions have really went away. I mean, the availability for us as individual domain investors to sell via auction, and I truly miss it. Thanks for bringing up fish tanks too. By the way, I got family that's been in the aquarium business for 40 years, and African Adventure Aquarium.com. Motherfucker. Fish tanks is a good business, and you see them in hospitals, you see them in medical offices, you see them at university. Basically, it's the business of you put the tank in, and then of course you service it, but it's still good business cleaning up fish shit. Okay. Hey,
You,
Josh, did
you
you
like
get?
them because they're shark, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is like the sixth or seventh GoDaddy sort of auction of this type. I know the first two was just GoDaddy names from NameFind, but I think after like the third one or fourth one, they started having other sort of partner, like other people who did list them, like not just individual domain investors, but like bigger platforms. I think that contributed some of the catalog auction catalog. So I don't know if it's just GoDaddy names. It might have changed over time too, but it might. I don't think
Yeah,
it's
well, they're
just
not
them.
letting me put mine in there. That's all I know. Hey,
Yeah.
Josh, did you take a chance to, and then we'll go around the room. Anybody look at anything in this GoDaddy auction that, got their interest or they noticed. Did you see anything, Josh?
Nah, I, I honestly, I tend to stay away from most auctions, man. I'll be honest. It's like everyone talks about them, everyone's looking at them. Um, occasionally things slip through the cracks, but for the most part, on the type of names that I want, they're gonna go either higher than I would like, or in this case, I just don't see that many names that I love. Like if I see a name that I love, I'll try to bid more than anyone else for it. But if they're like, you know, names that are fairly easy to get your hands on, these days I just kind of skip over it.
Yeah, I was writing stuff down. Anybody else see anything in there? The reason I ask, yeah, there's a lot of .co, and then we were going to talk quickly about a
Oh, Group.
ROTD.
I saw Group.co was on there. Group.co is a great name. If you can get that under 5K, that's great. But you're not going to get it under 5K. It's going to go to 10.
How about Northeast, Josh? Northeast is like one of the most used terms in branding. Do you like those directional names?
Northeast.co.
Yeah, Northeast is up there.
Yeah, Northeast.co is decent. I would probably pay maybe less than 5K for sure. Maybe like 2 or 3. What's the starting price on it?
Hold on, I'm looking. I had it right up here. It is 951, no bids.
Yeah, so like if you can get that name for like 2K, it's a good buy.
Arif, go ahead. You like to, anything Josh says you think is fucking, just fucking with you. Hey, about this WS, or I'm sorry, yeah, the WS stuff, Shane. I know you got some 2 letters and well, I don't know if Monty's doing any favors to the WS market because he's selling a bunch of them starting bid at $99, but that's the ROTD auction. Um, anyway, so Monty's still doing a lot of auctions. There's something I don't think I put the link in. I probably should put it on DNX Show. But anyway, it's he's offering a bunch of 2 letter and I think some 2 number, maybe some 3 letter .ws, but big WS auction. Shane, you're the expert with WS, and the reason I say that is we know
That's
I
not
know,
a good thing to be an
yeah,
expert at. Of
yeah,
all the titles I've earned or received over the years, the .ws guy is not my favorite, but it's a lottery ticket. It was always a lottery ticket. You hoped it. It was one of those why not? If that can catch on, why not this? At $99, it's worth a couple shots on. I can tell you this: I took a bath on the first batch, but mostly because of numerics. I still own a lot of 2-letter, 2-number .ws. I sell one every couple years for like $2,000, and it pays for my renewal. So it is a profitable thing at this point, but it's only because I got in a car wreck in the first round. So yeah, I don't know. It's a lottery ticket. It's one of those things. You can get any keyword in .ws you want for pretty much registration cost. Can't pay too much on them because there's just no resale at all, like zero. If you have a 0.1% sell through rate, you're doing great in that one. So it's a tough one, but these are the better names. So if you're interested in buying a couple, it's probably as good a place to buy as any.
I've one .ws. I even got started with like maybe 3 or 4, whatever it is, and down to one. It's wind.ws. Is that a keeper or a drop? I'm just don't even know. It's a good keyword, wind, and like any other extension, but I just WS. I just don't I don't know enough about it.
My advice would be don't go to Jimmy John's one day and just renew it for $10.
So the other day I saw agentic AI.ws on the closeouts for $30. And I hit up Claude. I was like, what can I do with this? And, AI bin itself, it was like, oh, that's a great name. And I was like, why? It said, oh, you could build a newsletter called Agentic Workspace. So that was the only thing I saw that made sense of WS in the recent past. Other than that, I know that they were used for like emojis, and that really never really took off either.
Washington State WS. I think it'd be cool if you had like to.ws,
Trust me, I
toes.
tried to think of everything that could catch on, and nothing quite has. All we need is some big company to start on .ws. It's like .so, right? Nobody knew .so until Notion came, and nobody knew .fun until Pump came. So when do you guys start a billion-dollar company on .ws and make everybody happy?
Uh, Josh had a post about, let me remind myself of it. I'll go to my outline at dnxshow.com. How easy to remember. But yeah, Josh, you posted .com answers to no one, .co. You're just talking about answers to .com, .io, and .io. .io answers to .ai and .com. .ai answers to .com. .org answers to, once again, no one. Was your point here, Josh, that um, all of them really answer to .com except for .org, since it has sort of that meaning, and of course we know it doesn't need to be a nonprofit, but people look at .org differently. So what was this post about? Basically just .org is different than all these other extensions that answer to .com.
Yeah, we were talking about it in a group chat with some friends, and it just like we got to a point where we were discussing it, and it just like made it. I think actually Shane may have said that, may have said like .org. One of the reasons why .org is so popular and always kind of finishes at the top of reports when you're talking about aftermarket transactions. I think domain agents put out a report saying that .org was their second highest aftermarket TLD, even ahead of, I think it was even ahead of .ai again. Um, and obviously the year before, Afternic put out a report showing that .org was their second highest aftermarket TLD after .com as well. I suspect that that has now changed and that AI has overtaken it, but they haven't put out a new report for last year yet. Um, but yes, one of the reasons why is because it's it's like when someone wants a .org, there is no alternative, right? Like whether it be a a non-profit, or sometimes it's just some sort of like community focused thing. um like they specifically go out for the .org, um while everything else kind of like apart from .com has an alternative, right? It's like like .xyz is always competing with .io in the crypto space. .co is basically competing with like all of those other TLDs, whether it be like .io, .ai, .net, all of them. Like if you can't get, if the .co is too expensive, like it's easy to just like have a look at the .net or have a look at the .io, and so they're all like competing with each other. But .org doesn't fit into that category, and I think that that's why it consistently performs extremely well in the aftermarket. Um, yeah, and people are starting to pay attention. I mean, it's about time. I've been harping on about it for 2 years in a row, but people are starting to pay attention.
Now, I can explain this with an analogy like I always do. This is something my grandfather told me when I was like really young. He's told me that the value of everything is the ability to replace it. So whatever you get paid has nothing to do how much education you have, anything. I only pay you what it costs to replace you. So if there's a mechanic that has special skills that nobody else can do, it doesn't matter how much schooling he has, he's going to get the highest pay because I can't find another one like him. And on domain names, org is not have a lot of replacement. And that's why I did say that. I'm not sure if that's what led to it, Josh, but org and domain names is not something that people move to an alternative. They want a .org, it's a .org. They move to another .org that might have another keyword, but it has a different replacement value than the rest of the TLDs. So that's why I'm using that analogy to almost everything I do in life. What does it cost for me to get another one of these? Well, if you see a PSA 10 Mickey Mantle, you're looking at what it costs to replace that, and they're hard to replace or they're popular. So in orgs, it has a different replacement value than the other names, and that's why it has more value. To me, it's almost second to .com.
This is what you said word for word, Shane. It's that you said value always comes down to the ability to replace it, and .org represents something no other TLD can match. The others fight with each other while org watches.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
This guy.
Yeah, but it makes sense, right? I mean, like there's not. I mean, there are some of the NGTLDs. I think like dot and NGO or whatever it is. There's also, you could also argue that dot info for a portion of dot orgs, right? Like for the lead generation type of stuff. And dot info is apparently doing quite well. I know Bob Hawks had a long article about it a while ago. But yeah, for the most part, if you're like just a regular organization, that's the only one people understand. Like dot NGO, it's there, but do people understand it when they see it? Probably not, because it's not in use. Sometimes there needs to be a certain critical mass of usage. I think it was an old article I saw, or it was something in an old Sherpa, whatever. Somebody mentioned that, for a TLD to have legitimacy, its total market cap of all the combined used companies using it needs to be like $100 million. Now, again, like that number is just arbitrary, but there probably is a certain threshold where, yeah, that usage really does make a difference in visibility, and because NGO, that would be perfect for a lot of companies, but like, are any of them using it? I haven't seen one.
Dude,
.org
I
is
didn't
really
even.
good.
So .ngo is like the second time I've talked about that TLD today, and I like this morning when someone else mentioned it, I was like, oh, I didn't even know that existed.
This is
Problem,
my
right?
first time ever hearing of it.
If most of us don't know exists, then it's not a real alternative, right? When Shane says, "Oh, well, the cost to replace it," well, if people don't know of that replacement, then that original cost is still high because people don't think they can replace it, right? So it's really an important point. Like it's .info, yeah, that's known, but again, it's not. It wouldn't be a replacement for all types of .org usages, right? Just like the lead gen and stuff like that. But again, .info apparently it's in good use.
Can you
And there's
imagine
still
how many
value there.
BINGO, 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 and bingo? What's his name? Josh, you said .bot or .not. Okay, bot.ai sold for Ron Jackson. He's awesome, but he had it. That was a Sedo sale, 1.2 million. Of course, that's not a .bot. That's bot.ai. That's weird, huh? Bot.ai. So that was an AI sell for 1.2 million. And then I wanted to talk quickly about the private LLM that sold for 205,000. Because Josh, I wanted to ask you two questions, and of course everyone else too. But I'd like to hear what Josh says. I know you sold trading.bot. I think it was 25 grand, 20 to 25 grand. You had a payment plan. That's active right now, correct? I mean, no cancellations. That's out of your portfolio.
Trading bot sold all cash.
Nice. Okay. Trading.bot. And so what was your take? So .bot or .not? Are you a no, you don't believe in them? You happen to, you found an exception, but you're not really a .bot investor, are you?
I wouldn't be putting my money in there if I didn't have money to kind of spend and stuff. I do think that, I would have said the same thing about .ai 10 years ago as well. So it doesn't mean that .bot has no potential future. It just means that, it's really pretty high risk and good chance that there isn't much meaningful adoption. There's also, you have to contend with the premium renewal costs, which are never favorable for a domainer. Having said that, obviously I sold trading.bot, made a 10x on it. So, when I do have success, like some degree of success with a new TLD like that, I like to reinvest the profit back into said TLD. So, I have bought some more .bot names, and I will renew all the .bot names that I bought last year. Yeah, I think that there's probably my incline is that there will be more adoption than what we see today. Whether or not that equates to meaningful adoption as a reseller, which we all are, I would say probably somewhat unlikely, but not impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Cool.
noticed that.
You got
I
anything?
noticed that the trading dot bot name was used by a prediction markets tracking tool, and it kind of like made me look at dot bot in a different way because there are a lot of those that have been built, and I can see many use cases for dot bots that I didn't see last year when there was a hand registration frenzy. So yeah, it's shaping up to be a decent extension.
Do you have
What's
any?
the
Yeah, I agree.
what's the base price on not bot, like the non-premium?
$60.
Okay.
You can get it for 50 on Dynadot.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like bot just linguistically, like I see as being a synonym for like dot agent, right? I mean, those I think people down the road for AI, agents could be branded as bots, and bot is a little bit simpler linguistically, but again, it really comes down to I'm hesitant when it comes to premium renewals, right? It's not that I'm saying you shouldn't invest in them. I'm just saying you should do Josh level research before buying them if there's anything above the standard renewals.
Do you own
Yeah,
any ish?
man. The top domains guy, that guy must have an insane renewal bill, man. Like, whew.
I was asking
Do you know
ish.
who I'm talking about?
No, the top guy.
Top dot domains. He's the guy who like
Oh,
buys all of the new GTLDs, and like he's the one who reports basically most of the top sales. Um, but he's got a lot and thousands, and a lot of them are premium renewals.
Yeah, I think that's a market where an average person will jump in, doesn't know much. Most 99, well, not maybe not 99, but like 95% of people will lose their shirt. But if you know what you're looking for and you do the research, those can be really valuable. Like some of them sold for, well, now we're talking seven figures. But I mean, I remember even 5 years ago, before all this stuff started, there was two of them in the like vacation rentals or something like that sold for $500,000. And so there's if you get the right combination, they could be
Yeah,
really
so like
valuable. Yeah.
so top dot domains guy, I'm just like looking at what kind of names he's got. He owns chat dot bot. Dude, that has a $13,000 renewal.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
to an end user, that's a hack and just the cost of doing
Yeah.
business because
Yeah.
Chatbot is a grill of a name. And they're just looking at it like, okay, we want to just go direct to consumer. Fuck the domainers. So I think
What do
that's
you
what
have?
Cloud's saying.
Does
Yeah,
it have a
but
list price? Does it have a
think
bid price
about
on it?
every year your cost goes up 13,000. So, you know, in 5 years you have, you know,
Yeah, but think about
eighty
that. Like,
thousand dollars in the name.
if you're running an actual business and you're making seven figures, eight figures, that's nothing.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
but
no,
I wonder how much
no, I
topdomains.com is going for. It's a domainer owns that. So the guy's spending all his money on all these names, but he hasn't negotiated that for 50,000. I mean, you can't get topdomains.com. Maybe the guy, but that's always, anyway, I immediately went to topdomains.com, Josh, and I see, like I do for a lot of things that I see
no,
on
but
TV, and I see domain owners.
he's a new GTLD guy,
Yeah,
and so he's obviously going to go brand on top dot domains, not
sure,
topdomains.com. This
but
guy
you but
hates
but
.com.
still, you try to you get it. Yeah, we were on DNX show too, until I realized DNX show. But when you were mentioning .co earlier,
This guy owns fake dot news as well. That is a grail.
yeah, I mean it's so he's paying that. I know I have 4 dot bots. I would ask you, Ish, do you own any dot bots? And then Dave and Shane, do you guys own any?
Yeah, I own a few. I own influencers.bots. I own another one I can't think of right now. I have to look. But yeah, I think I hand registered like three or four of them.
Yeah, I got 4. Dave, you got any dot bot? Dave,
No, I got that bet.
yeah, I like that. Shane, did you got any dot bot or dot bet?
No, not anymore. I let them expire. I can't remember what I had. I did buy one called gibberlink.bot because that was the language bots talked with, and evidently that was trademarked, and they sent around cease and desist to everybody. So kind of letting that one go.
Yeah, I also own outbound.bots.
Yeah, I picked up outboundbrokers.com the other day. I think I did. I think that's what it was because I had that, credit from Unstoppable, $500 credit. Dude, I've been fucking beating it up. So I mean, I got some names, and matter of fact, I got some two-letter like pplm.com. Okay, but I've always, liked acronyms and take a chance, and especially when it's fucking free. But Josh, that private LLM sold for a couple $100,000. A lot of you talked about it. I had purchased some LLM names, like I said, two-letter PRLLM, BR, just ones that I thought made sense. But also, like I said, it's a crapshoot, and I know people think, is there anything? Well, I've had success with stuff like that in the past. We'll see about these. But Josh, do you have any LLM names or names, basically domains in your portfolio that have LLM in them?
No, don't think so. LM maybe. L-M.com. Does that count?
No,
Hell
thanks
no.
for saying it. Hey, what about
XLM.ai, does that count?
So an
XLM?
Well,
interesting one, just, I was looking at the auctions, it ends in an hour and 40 minutes, but it's agentic.lc. I have no idea what LC is, but I see LCs coming through Dynadot all the time, and it's at $8. Josh, is that a crapshoot or even worth touching?
I think that actually like like the super, super hot keywords like agentic or agent, or I remember back in the day it was ETH, right? You can basically register them in any extension and you've got a decent chance at selling them. You remember like ETH.Paris sold for like 50 grand? It's like what? Like those kind of SLDs you could pretty much register if you can get them at like $10 or whatever. You might literally just register them in anything, and
Yeah,
it's got
this
a better
one's,
better
yeah, I
sell through
probably
rate than
ruined the
like your
auction,
average.com.
but like it's a renewal of $21. It's agentic.lc for $8. Those are the kind
Yeah.
of names that I am going to scratch off lottery. I probably won't get it now that I talked about it, but
Yeah.
it's interesting.
yeah, I can chime in on private LLM. So private LLM is not just a random combination of a keyword and LLM. First of all, LLMs are going to be huge. Um, I think they're going to be what about $80 billion. The CAGR, from what I read, it's currently at about 6.5 billion right now. So, but if you look at like the naming lexicons, they use names like llama, chat GPT, and things like that. So it's a little bit tricky, but private LLM happens to be a technical term and also very brandable. And the end user calls themselves private LLM. They vibe coded a site, and what they're selling are inference tokens. So AI is all powered by tokens, and so they're basically doing the token arbitrage play, which I'm very familiar with. But there's going to be a lot of LLMs that are very meaningful, like clinical LLMs, and so if you're going to invest in LLM names, just do some research, and before you start doing guesswork with it, it has to be something that's technical and has some level of brandability with it as well.
Sounds like I'm gonna be rich, rich. Okay, so
Hilarious.
yeah, LLMs for 6 trillion. I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait. And some agent names. Yeah, I did register some agent names recently. I really love that. That was pretty fantastic of Unstoppable to give all of us that attended $500. Just $500 cash, and of course, we still got the 599 Fridays. I think there's even one more. Shane, did you use your $500 yet?
No, I haven't used it all, but I did do a post yesterday. I used their chat GPT, everybody can write their own GPTs, and they wrote their own. And honestly, once I put it and locked it into the registrar, I'm not probably going on the registrar anymore. I can do everything through my GPT, through my phone, and search. And I was really surprised how easy it was and how much it's probably what everything's going to look like. Because Then I hooked it up to some API at SEMrush and some other things. So I almost got like my own little expired domains going chat, and then it just automatically goes to whatever registrar. In this case, it was Unstoppable because it was the easiest to hook up through and register. So yeah, I'm starting to pop through those names too, because I can buy, I don't know if my $500 counts towards aftermarket stuff, but I can pretty much buy right through my GPT on my phone. So yeah, I think I got a glimpse of the future, and that I will say the $500 was a super smart move of theirs, because realistically, I don't know if I'd be trying it if they didn't give me some money to play around. So I like that concept of giving me free money to use their product.
Well, I have to say, I took advantage not just of the 500, but of the $10,000, which if you guys haven't, and you like Unstoppable, I think it ends this week, right? So I mean, now it's 599 transfers. I mean, I transferred a couple thousand domains, and I saved myself 10K. So I had two 10K sales in January, and I consider my third 10K sale, and I have 5,000 domains. So like I have like already on other sales, I'm like 80% of my costs for the year are already done. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you make money on the where you can save. So
It reminded me of the credit card plays when I was a kid. Remember, you would transfer your balance to save some money to the next credit card because they had cheaper rates, or they give you money to move everything over. That's kind of what I feel with their cheap deals.
As somebody like who's involved in the industry, like talks in these discussions like that, I do have my concerns. Is that like at a certain point, if they all race to the bottom, then nothing's going to have quality. But look, Spaceship, you transfer stuff to Spaceship, it's still $8 for .coms, right? I mean, everything I buy at auction at GoDaddy, well, it's gone through Spaceship. I saved $2-3 there, and then it goes. Well, this past year now, I've used up my 10,000 at Unstoppable, but I mean, I saved another $6, $5, or whatever it is. So it's like saving a lot of money with these things, and it's like, yeah, my concern is where are they going to make their money longer term? It's that's another discussion for another day, I guess. But like it's great to have all these savings, but if the company's not making money, are they going to be there in 3 years? I don't know.
Eric, let them worry about that.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm not too worried. Look, I did go there, right? I mean, look, I'm really appreciative of Unstoppable. Again, I've saved $10,000 in the last few months, and not only that, my renewals. I'm done my renewals until like June or something like that. I've never, on very rare occasions, has been a few weeks ahead of it, and usually I renew stuff after they expire. Right, it's just always been my routine. And the last couple of years has been a little bit more like just before they expire, whatever it is. But it's a good feeling, man, to be this far ahead. It's kind of weird. It's like I'm not getting these emails of saying your domain expires in like in 20 days or 30, whatever it is. It's like it's strange not having my mailbox filled with that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's a new way of doing. It's called customer acquisition strategy. Like GoDaddy will rather spend the money on ads in the Super Bowl. They prefer to just share with their end users. You know what I mean? So, the lifetime value of a domain investor is worth more than what they're conceding right now. So it's just it's a win-win.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just not very big. Go ahead, Shane. Sorry.
I've always felt that this, you're seeing it. I don't know if you guys use Robinhood or things like that. You're seeing that the new marketing is paying people to bring over their assets, and like Robinhood will pay you, I don't know the number now, but 1 or 2% of your 401k in cash to bring your 401k over to them. Domains are not going to be any different. I 100% feel confident that there is going to be a day very soon that these registrars will pay you cash to bring your portfolio to their registrar. I think that's undoubtedly coming.
Yeah,
but they already are, right? By putting stuff below cost, I
think they're just going to write you a check.
Sure. And
right now we get socks.
If we use their name servers, they should be paying us. But Shane, you bring up a good point. So I used to have a collection company. We did collection for LA Times, and LA Times say pay $80 for every account that we saved. Well, I'd contact some people. They only owed $12. They just pay the $12 to get 80. Basically, just pay off their debt and then get them back signed up. But the point is, to buy a customer, right? The customer acquisition cost is, who knows what it is. So of course, this strategy, .xyz did it. And then what you try to do is hopefully some of them stick around. And I was joking, Arif, about you can check in, but you can't check out. Yeah, you transferred your names and now try to get them out of there. Hey, I want to say quickly, Josh.
I have. I sold some of them at Unstoppable.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more of a finicky process. It's not like 5 minutes between most ones, but I was able to do it. It's not obvious. You're gonna have some questions the first time you do it, but it transferred out. I was sold through Afternic, so transferred back to Afternic. Wasn't a problem.
Okay, so Josh, I want to ask you, how do you handle this Darcy guy? Okay, so I see he posted 3 hours ago. Of course, that was before our show. That says, "So tired of the .com versus other TLDs argument. Just shut the fuck up and sell domains." This guy is too much. He's in the room.
It's
Darcy,
winter in Canada. It's
yeah,
cold and angry.
no, and I like Darcy. That picture of him on the boat makes me think, that's a negotiating tactic, because rich guys used to do things like, if you can't, you made an offer, we're negotiating, I'll just go back out on my boat. I bring that up. I don't know why. Because then it puts you in a more powerful position. And anyway, Darcy on a boat. This guy, catching dirty old catfish, I'm sure, something. But so Darcy says he's tired of the .com versus other TLDs argument. And then he's telling us just flat out to shut the fuck up. He's basically telling all of us. But I don't know what he meant, because it wasn't with regards to our conversation here, because he did that before. Otherwise, we'd be fucking bringing him over the coals. But Josh, I don't know. I mean, you're not his spokesperson, but what's the tiresome of the argument .com versus other TLDs? Is it basically we know? You think he's saying that we know? This is without asking Darcy to come up here. Do you think we know that .com is king and there's no reason to have an argument? Or is he saying that there's actually reason for, I don't know, other people to own these other TLDs? And why am I asking you? But go ahead, Josh. We're only here for 15 more minutes. Okay, so he doesn't care. Josh doesn't care about any of that.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, he's saying that .com is obviously the best TLD. It's like stupid. It's a stupid conversation, and that doesn't mean that you can't invest in other TLDs. So you don't need to say that they're not competing with each other. They both exist, and they can both be valuable in their own right. It's not a one or the other.
Yeah,
And he's requested, so I'll let him come up and say exactly the same thing.
I kind of agree what he's saying, but in the fact that this is discussions, right? Like, oftentimes these discussions derail into not the common sense of .coms are obviously the most valuable, most in demand, but the other ones, there is potential there, right? There's profit to be made in the alternative extensions. But the thing is, sometimes these discussions go into it's one or the other, right? And that's just silly. And I don't really think most people really think that. Is that sometimes these discussions evolve on X or whatever else it is, amongst people who don't really sell domains. So they're just they're trying to come up with explanations as to why their non.coms have value but aren't selling, right? And they really don't have value, but it's like these people who are wishful thinkers. It's just like in the past, like all these different combinations and type subgenres of .coms that never really sold or never really were profitable. People start all these arguments, oh no, it's this and that, blah, blah, blah. But as the top rule is, if you have to explain it, right, then there's going to be a tough time at actually selling them.
From
it's
one
not
Canadian
that it's
to
all
another. Derbyshire, you're on the air. Go ahead.
No, I obviously .com is the king of them all, but all I was saying is that I'm tired of these people arguing their bags. You get these people shilling .si and .bot, and just you can make money in any extension. You just don't have to shill yourself over and over and over and argue with people. And this goes for .com as well. Like the Castillo Bros, I think that's what triggered me. Is they're just always shitting on the alternative extensions, but different, everything can work. It's just you don't have to always argue against something else.
So 99% of the time, these people making these arguments are people who just don't sell domains, right? And they're trying to justify why they're holding them, or they're trying to sort of hype it up so they think bring value to it, or think that other domainers will start to buy their domains. It's not, unfortunately, as I said, the vast majority of these people aren't don't have a viable domain business, and they're grasping at straws. They're treading water. They're trying to.
Yeah, but you can't say that again about the Costellos. I mean, they have some really good names, and their renewals are
Yeah, they're
probably
big timers. First of all, I want to say, Ish, you made the comment about that, and we'll bring it up, Darcy. You're like, hey, I'm trying to sell this name. I call somebody at the .com, and then all of a sudden they go out and they buy the .ai, and then the Costello brothers and Michael, I'm sure it was Michael, maybe it was David, who said the .com just went up, and then of course somebody else chimed in too and said, yeah, the price goes up. That's just like domainers, huh? Well, fuck it, man. Now you
Yeah.
just tripled, you son of a bitch. Okay, so but it is true. As soon as someone, we all think we'll just raise the price on them. That'll show them, and like then they're going to come running back and paying
Yeah,
triple.
right. It doesn't work like that
Go
no
ahead.
more. People can run a viable, successful business on any COD. And in this situation, it's a client. I'll even be transparent. We were having a discussion about buying superconfident.com. Funny, they run an LLM business, and the guy goes out there and hand registers superconfident.ai. It's still going to buy the .com. Hopefully, I'll close that, very soon. But he felt like it just reminded me, like, oh shit, if you're gonna really shill a .com name to someone in AI, it might be smart to acquire the .ai if it's available, um, either for a hand reg or a cheaper price. You just have you have more leverage that way, because people are going to build on what's acceptable in their industry, and .ai is very, 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 very accepted in the AI realm. So, I don't buy into the whole leakage narrative. This is not the 2000s anymore. It's 2026, and obviously the .com is desired, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, about the leakage. .co, when these guys were talking earlier, Shane talking about Northeast.co, and Josh is saying, yeah, boy, .co
.co
to
is
me,
prone
I
to
guess that
natural leakage
that looks
because
like
of the
it's missing a
proximity.
letter to the average person. You
Yeah.
see on a billboard, you're just think even when someone sends it, you just think it's missing. But it's been successful as an extension. I mean, I guess according to some people that own it, I think even Arab said I've been, I'm above water with my .co's. Josh, when's the last time you sold a .co, and what was it?
Um, I sell .co quite frequently. It's a good extension. Let me see. I'm pretty close to. I think I'm close to closing a deal right now on Nucleus.co for like mid five figures. I'm not sure if it's done yet, but it's not done yet. They're at like 30K. I think I'm probably gonna hold out for 50 on that. But I sold NorthPoint.co, since we were talking about east something, northeast we were talking about. I sold NorthPoint.co for 5K this year. Um, yeah, I mean, I've probably sold some more. My computer's been a bit slow here. But yeah, I mean, how many .cos do I have first and foremost? I probably have
That was my next question.
I probably have not that many. I've less than 200.
Yeah, Josh told
So
us earlier he's
Josh,
at
how many
13,000.
freaking names do you
He's
have,
at
man?
13,000. He said.
You just said
yes.
before, yeah. I think the last time we talked, you were like at 5,000. That was a pretty big jump.
Yeah, I don't have that many .cos. I have 120 .cos, but they're mostly like pretty good. They're all like good. They're all registered in, I don't know, 120 plus TLDs, so they sell frequently. .co is a good TLD. It's just you can't get big money. I was talking to Darcy about this the other day because he was asking me some advice on a .co, and actually someone else, UFO, was asking me for advice on a .co recently too. And I don't know. I treat .co a little bit differently than I treat .io and .ai, and .org. I treat it differently than all three. So like those three, .org, .ai, and even .io, I will spend 5 figures on those names. I will spend 10 grand, 15 grand, sometimes 20 grand on one of those names because they have the top SLDs have the 6-figure upside. With .co, I know that we see some 6-figure sales here and there, particularly from that guy that sells on Name Pros. But I can tell you, he has an insane portfolio of .co names. So, it's not surprising that once, every 6 months or so, he sells one for a lot of money. But it's very hard to sell .co for 6 figures, and like I said, I have maybe like 50 like amazing .cos, amazing, and they're all kind of priced in the 50 to 75k range. I've sold one .co for 75k, and most of my others sell in like the 20 to 40k range. So I just don't think that there's a lot of like upside to be paying more than 5k for .cos. If you pay a little bit more than 5k on like the really, really top ones, I think it's fine, somewhere in the 5 to 10 range. But generally, for me, I don't pay more than 5k for a .co, but I will pay more than that for a .org, .io, or .ai.
Interesting about .co is since it's the the CCTLD for Colombia, people have never really been worried about that. I mean, I know it's managed by Registry.co, which is CentralNIC company. I just looked that up, and it's not like I fucking know. But anyway, no one, people, hey, what .ai? That's Anguilla, and .tv, it's going underwater. But no one even talks about .co of Colombia. Just another country that could say, hey, we decided we want to raise rates, or I don't know what their agreement is with their service provider, Registry.co. So maybe they're in an agreement that they're
They
not.
have over the years, but not drastic amounts.
Hey,
Right? I think
anybody
now
want
they're in
to,
the
you
high
guys,
20 bucks.
Arif,
They're like 19.
if you want to ask Josh a question, he's sitting at his computer. We heard him clicking. Boy, this is the time to get any information from Josh. So any of you guys on stage or somebody wants to come up, we're only here 5 more minutes before, so think about your question. But Josh, Darcy was saying, uh, yeah, you mentioned, does it matter who owns a name? Because, and we talked about it earlier, yeah, people do like to know Marilyn Monroe lived in this condo, right, Shane? And then it's like, but it's just a trashy condo. But yeah, but it always sells for more than the other condos in the area. And it's really the story. So it's really the story. We know this as salespeople. The story helps sell stuff. And if the story includes a famous owner, or well, I don't know. Usually a death doesn't help a home sale. But if a famous owner, that can help the story. So if a domain goes to a big company, Jet was owned, by a big company. Then it went to Walmart, and now I don't know where the frig it is. But you said, Josh, I can't tell. You jump back and forth. It's like a fucking jump rope.
I think let me
Yeah.
jump ahead of your question here. It's far less it's far less the case when we're talking about a market of domain resellers versus the desirability of certain end users. So if there is any kind of favorability to me owning a name versus you owning a name, Todd, it's extremely marginal because we're professional domain resellers. Everyone in here is in the business of buying and selling domain names. So I don't care whether you or Shane or Drew own a name. I only care about the name itself because I'm a professional. Now, if you're not a professional reseller and you're not in the business of reselling domain names, you're into building businesses based on domain names, then it's a completely different thought process. For me, that's abundantly clear. If it's not clear for you, I mean, I can't
Okay.
I can't hold you I can't hold your hand. I can't hold your hand down that path. But you know,
Don't talk to me
if
like
you
you
have
talk to
good
Darcy. Shane, what were you going to
if you
say? I want to hear what Shane was going
and
to say.
I just want to
Yeah.
I just want to finish on this because you know I feel like I have proved this without any doubt that if you have good names, they will sell at wholesale. I literally went above and beyond to prove it. I've proved it on so many instances. It's untrue that I'm now tired of saying it.
Josh is being
Okay, I'm going to
humble.
send you a list of names I have for wholesale, and if you don't buy them, then it doesn't work.
Yeah, when
But
you
like
said that
ultimately,
earlier,
the
No,
I was
no,
value.
just
that
thinking no one wanted your names. Hey, Darcy, don't talk.
Ultimately,
Shane was talking here.
Hey,
Arif,
I saw Todd do an auction for names for $20,
yeah.
and people just passed. It happens.
exactly. And Todd is the most famous guy in the industry. So why weren't they
I
buying his
I think
names?
I think more what instead of who owns the domains, I think it's more important, is what we talked on earlier. Every time a billion-dollar company puts their company on a certain TLD, it gives it more value, right? So it's like if somebody famous moves into a bad neighborhood and builds a mansion, that neighborhood gets more value because somebody that has putting a lot of money and effort into an asset, and they're willing to put it there, that makes you feel more comfortable that you could buy and sell a name in that area too, right? So kind of what I said with Notion going to .so, that put a lot of value, saying, hey, they felt comfortable going there, maybe other people will as well. So that's where ownership, it helps the TLD little by little, not domainers owning a domain.
Go ahead, Darko. What are you going to say?
I was gonna say that Josh is being humble because I've been in the DNX Discord and seen someone trying to wholesale a name for like days, and then all of a sudden it gets a little thumbs up from Josh, and the thing fucking moves instantly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see,
but
Josh. And if there was a thrift store and there was a shirt that Arif wanted, Arif, I'm speaking for you now, and I said,
Yeah.
hey, Arif's like, I love that shirt. It's my size and everything. And I said, yeah, I used to own it. He's like, and if I said Josh owned it, he'd like, I want it, I want it. So, Arif, go ahead.
Hey guys, honestly, I'm not even going to argue. If you think that I'm that popular, fuck, great. This is what we want, actually, to be honest. Now round up the troops and let's freaking go to war.
But the popularity for Josh isn't because he's wearing a nice shirt, although I'm sure I know he has nice jackets and whatever it is, but it's because we know he does the research, right? So
Listen.
there is something there that's like, okay, I would trust Josh's opinion a little bit more because I know he probably took the time to do the research behind it. He does more research per domain in his portfolio than I do for mine, right? And that's something like I admire him for that, right? When I always say you guys should follow Josh. He's a smart domainer, whatever it is. I'm not saying like I know he doesn't like that because like he's truly pretty humble and a nice guy. He doesn't want to be seen as whatever it is, but he takes the time to do the research, right? And that's what most of us don't do.
So it's not
right.
All right,
because he's good looking
I
and
got a
built like a
little,
brick
I got a little
shithouse.
thing, I got a little thing to add actually. While we've got all these people in here, I recently recorded a podcast with Domain Name Wire, Andrew Alleman, and I revealed like my process pretty much to a T for how I go about my hand registrations. I know that I've like given a lot of information around it about what I do, but not necessarily how I do it. Andrew managed to extract most of that out of me. So if you want to know how, you can listen to the next podcast on on Domain Name Wire. But I think that's coming out in like, I don't know, a couple weeks or so. I think Andrew just wants to make sure that he can pick up as many
but also,
names before going
yeah.
live.
But also, in fairness, people have listened to you in all these rooms over the last couple of years. Like, there's no excuse not to know what to do.
Yeah, although I've never really actually like revealed my exact process of how I do it, and I did do that on the Domain Name Wire show. So it's
Great.
It's,
See, and plus,
Some regret.
Andrew also edits the thing and makes it sound real smart, and then you share good stuff with him, and then I'm like a motherfucking fool here flapping in the water. It's live, and okay. So anyway, and I think Arif likes your shit, Josh, because it's just the fucking English accent. Bought and process. Okay, so we're ending it today. I mean, I'm gonna. Waller and whatever. Okay, so that's going to be it for today.
I have a question. Actually, can I have a question? What do you guys think about? So, like, private LLM is worth whatever 6 figures. Private. What do you guys think about a name like privatemodel.com or privateip.com? Like IP for intellectual property or like IP addresses, private model for like language model. Are those names valuable or are they not valuable
I think
like a
private
private
model.
LLM?
I think private model is synonymous to private LLM. I would even argue that it's just as good or better than private LLM.
Really?
Yeah, because it can expand beyond the scope of what LLMs do. Right? LLMs might not be around in the future. You know what I mean? But the concept of privacy or something private is pretty big. So I think private model is a good name. I don't know about private IP, but I think private model is a good name. I would keep that one.
Well, the second M in LLM is model, right? So there, I do think there's something there because private LLM is an actual thing, right? Whereas like private IP, I like private as a keyword, but it's a different category because it's not really an actual thing. You know,
It sounds
you
like a
can have a
VPN. I like
private
private IP.
research, but it's not the same scale. But I still like the keyword private with IP, right? Just it's not on the same scale.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, that's got to do it for today. But yeah, private IP I think is good. Just private model, private parts. So it's all fucking cool stuff that I like to look at on the internet. Okay, that's it. We're going to be here next week.
4 people just put that. 4 people just put it in their carts just now. Good
How
job.
much are you asking for private model, though? That's the question.
It's not my name.
4
Oh, okay.
people just put it in their carts literally during this show.
I guess it's that influencer behavior.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody just paid $287 a month on a payment plan for private models. Good job.
Or maybe it depends on what they mean by model, right? Is it LLM or is it like a modeling agency type of models?
You guys are
in their
fun to be
lingerie or
around. I
whatever
can't
it
wait
is.
till next week. All right, that's going to do it for today. Catch us here next week, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's the DNX Show. We didn't even cover all the things we needed to, so we're going to throw them on next week's agenda about, some updates with DNX. There was a few things I
All right,
wanted to
man.
talk.
Don't be
Yeah, we're fucking
boring. Just
done.
give it an
Now we're
extra
really
15
done.
minutes.
Ish. I can't even find out
Thanks
I'm
for the
muted.
show, guys. Really good
All
show
right,
this week.
enjoy
Thank you, guys.
yourselves the rest of the day wherever you're at. Take care of yourselves.